You're listening to SiliconEdge's Spotlight Interview Series. SiliconEdge is personalized innovation for your competitive edge. Innovate, communicate, transform at silicon-edge.com. Now, here's your host, James Santagata.
Hi, and welcome to part 2. This is the second part of a two-part podcast on how to easily acquire, attract, and stop overpaying for truly top talent. If you haven't already, I would suggest going back and listening to the first part. Now, in the first one, we talked about the costs and the opportunity cost, as well as the direct financial cost of the talent acquisition process, both in successfully completing it, as well as the costs of overpaying when it's completed, as well as the costs of not filling the positions from both an opportunity cost perspective and a direct and indirect cost to the employee and the organization. Now, beyond all of this, what this also means is that how do we minimize these costs? Well, number one, it means that when candidates are brought in for an interview, they really need to be screened to ensure that each is of sufficient constitution to be employable at the firm. What that means is all participating interviewers need to know how to A, define talent, and B, test for the fit, both of talent and within the organization. And this is for the broader company within their particular department, as well as the particular team they would join if successful. Now, going beyond even this, we often find that we know that most interviewers don't understand this, but they need to know just not this. They need to know how to make the aforementioned items work. So, for instance, all interviewers need to know what techniques to use to extract the required information, as well as to guide the interview to get the information to assess. They also need to know what questions to ask and how to ask them, and more importantly, how to interpret the interviewee's responses to these questions. Right? You just can't roll in and pick up the resume and answer in a few moments. This is something that needs to be ingrained. Now, interviewers seldom think about this, and even if they do, their definition of talent is most often, I would say, both suspect and even deficient, as is their ability to effectively and efficiently interview and assess the candidate at hand. And this is not to say anything's bad, it's just that it's often not thought as a holistic process. There's many other factors which play into the decisions they've made. It's not that they're irrational, it's just that there's many other factors tugging at them simultaneously, which they need to satisfy. Now, in practice, this leads to a hiring process which favors most often the selection of a patently wrong candidate or the selection of a subpar candidate. It also leads to the hiring of so-called, what I call, safe candidates, or in the case of hiring which is done by marquee companies, Microsoft, Oracle, Facebook, etc., it often means hiring or leads to hiring only properly pedigreed candidates. And here's a newsflash. Almost any time you hire the properly pedigreed candidate, three things are happening. You overpay for talent, you end up with higher candidate expectations, leading to less loyalty, faster job changes, and or an attitude problem. Thirdly, an employee who actually is more likely to be recruited away, as also being more likely to look or more receptive to sweet whispers in the marketplace. Okay? Why should anyone care about this? Why should companies care, especially in Silicon Valley? Why would they worry about compensation or worry about overpaying? Can't they slough that off? We'll find out right after this message. Welcome back. Now, coming back to where we were, why would companies care about compensation or possibly overpaying? Well, in many industries, in fact, in most, Outside of real estate, the employee expenses or human resource expenses is the highest in the company. And in many cases, it may be as high as 2/3 of the expenses of the company. So it matters a heck of a lot. Now, even in Silicon Valley, they can't slough it off. They may be to a point because we're in a frothy time. I'll say it's a bubble. But either way, but that will change. So in regards to overpayment, though, or the overcompensation of talent, does Silicon Valley care? Well, publicly they may say they don't care, but all you really need to know is look at the previous proven collusion to hold down wages by some of the companies through anti-poaching agreements. And this happened with companies such as Apple and Google, although I will say that Facebook apparently had been approached but opted out of such an arrangement, to their credit. But if hiring companies weren't concerned about fast rising wages and finding new key talent or replacing it, why would they take such great risks to even involve in collusion? It makes no sense at all. So it just begs the question. And the answer is they do care because it matters. Now, why is this happening? Well, Economics 101 to the rescue, as well as behavioral psychology. First off, these wages are caused by, as a starting point, supply and demand. The hiring firm felt most likely that the supply of the top talent was in short supply compared to their own hiring demands and the aggregate market demand. Now, to be clear, that was top talent as defined per their narrow and often erroneous definition. There could be a broader definition where they could find as good people, nearly good, or even better for the same price or much lower. There's other cases as well where a company may want to sop up all of the available talent in the market and put it on the bench just to prevent a competitor from coming in. That would be almost like a first mover advantage. But I'm not speaking of that here. This is more overpaying but not wanting to, not doing it for any reason other than not understanding that it's happening or knowing that it's happening but not how to fix it. Now, it's also highly possible that the true top talent is in short supply. But as I said, it's more probable based on what I've seen in my own HR consulting and executive coaching over 10 years in this field, as well as being in the industry, that this is often brought on by the HR departments or the firm's hiring managers, a deficient or broken definition of what talent is, let alone top talent, as well as the inability of the hiring firm and the hiring firm's interviewers to properly attract, assess, close down said talent. Now, rather than developing a cohesive framework and starting with the definition of what's desired or required talent looks like, as well as what processes or techniques are needed to identify, assess, attract, and close, we often find the firm's hiring efforts are impeded by various cognitive biases, such as educational pedigree or the status and ranking of the candidate's current or former employer, right? Yet, as we've discussed time and time again, the firm's operating or assumed definition or desire to require talent is almost wrong. And these mental shortcuts actually invoke a series of other destructive cognitive biases, which quickly and rapidly can become a vicious circle, which end up with positions which are open, supposedly critical positions which are open for 6 months or even a year or longer. Okay, that just doesn't make sense. Why is this, or where do we see this happen? We'll be right back after this message. Okay, we're back again. So what are some examples of this misunderstanding or misassessment of talent? Let's look at a Google salesperson. And this is not to pick on Google or sales, but Google sales. How good are they? Well, they're from Google. They must be great at online sales. Really? But when you see that talented Google salesperson, can you really accurately determine how much of that person's success is due to their own talent? How much is due to the team behind them? How much is due to their success to the resources they had access to? How much is due to the candidate's success is due to Google's market power which is almost a monopoly in some areas. How much of it's due to the candidate's access or halo effect of the Google brand? In terms of the salaries paid, higher salaries don't automatically buy better talent nor more loyal talent. That's just another myth and meme that persists. We've already seen numerous cases of extremely loyal talent, and often top talent is motivated far less by market rate salaries and motivated far more by other factors. What are examples? Numerous. How about the motivation of military pilots or other military or intelligence community specialists? What about clergy, rabbi? What about various medical volunteers working in dangerous places around the world? If you want to turn to other more extreme or unsavory cases of motivation by non-monetary means, two immediate items of note come to mind. What about cults and suicide bombers? Now, both are usually extremely motivated, but in the case of cults, not only are they extremely motivated adherents and loyal individuals, but in many cases, they are not just willing to work for free. They first donate to the organization their entire life savings and then work for free. I'm not making a value judgment. I'm just making an observation of what they do. In the case of suicide bombers, well, they're willing to go to blow themselves up. Talk about dedication and passion, however twisted, debased, or unsavory it may be. It's fact. So don't try to tell me money's the greatest motivator. It ain't. Now, since you're most certainly not going to ask the candidate to commit to a radical program when they join the company, to work for free or give away their assets or blow themselves up, how hard can it be to close down that candidate and have them join your company? If you can't answer that satisfactorily, then it's time to look at how you can adjust and reconsider your recruiting and talent acquisition process. And for those not interested in reinventing the wheel or who'd like to access an immediately actionable system that provides an extremely powerful framework to identify, attract, assess, and close the talent while not overpaying or chasing it away, we'd suggest our supercharged candidate interviewing training and consulting programs, as well as our high-performance talent acquisition training and consulting programs. Something to think about. Thanks for joining us.